Hi everyone, welcome back to Plum Mashable. So today I'm going to show you how to add lights to your cards or tags, in this case using the Chibitronics. So if you want to see how I do it, then just keep watching. Alright, so the front of this is going to be very, very simple. It's the light up mechanism that's going to make it a bit fancy. So we'll start off just with the stamping and colouring because that's the easiest part. So I'm grabbing out my Fairy Friends stamp set. This is a Lawn Fawn one, of course. I almost feel like I shouldn't say that anymore. And I'm grabbing my Memento Tuxedo black ink. And this is a scrap piece of Express It blending card. I just find this is the easiest thing to put, or to get the Copics to blend nicely on. So I'm just inking up this little fairy here. We'll just stamp her on and then just clean off the stamp. And the only other stamp we're going to be using is this teeny tiny little magic wand, and this is going to be the light up element of the card. So I'm just going to stamp it off to the side because I want it to be separate for the start. Now I may come back and use some of the little twinkles in here later, but at least for now these are the two main images. So just going to put that off to the side, and then we're going to colour this in. Now the background of, got little bits left over, the background of the card, I think, and this might not work, so if it doesn't work I'll obviously just do a different one, is going to be this bit of paper. So because I'm using a really dark kind of blue, I want to stay in like a bluey, purpley, greeny kind of family. So I'm going to do a purple dress, but it's going to be a lighter purple dress, and then teal fairy wings. So I'm grabbing BV04 and BV02 for the dress, and then I'm grabbing BG11 and BG15, I think, for the wings, and then I'll work out the hair afterwards. So for the dress, I'm just going to start off and put the dark kind of colours where I think they should be, which is just a very small amount behind her arm and underneath her chin, and I'm just going to blend that out with the lighter BV02. It's very simple colouring, this one. Now they are a little bit far away from each other. They're not far away from each other number wise, but they are colour wise, so I might just have to do a little bit of tip to tip to get it to blend. So there's the dress. Yes, it's that simple. The wings, I want to keep them really light, but I just want them to have a little bit of kind of definition to them, which is what I'm going to use the darker of the mints for. So I'm going to start off with the moon white one and just colour in the wings, but I'm doing it really, really lightly. Actually, I might even do this lighter. So I'm just going to do just the sort of middle bit of the wings. And then I'm going to come in with the colourless blender and just pull that up and bring it into nothingness. Might need to put a little bit more on there. But whenever I'm using the colourless blender, I don't ever judge on what it looks like now. I wait until the colourless blender has like dried off, and then I'll decide what I need to do to it. While that's doing that, I need to decide what colour hair I want my fairy to have. Does she want to have brown hair or does she want to have blonde hair? So for her skin, I'll do her skin first. I'm going to use E50 and E51. E51 is just a little bit darker, so I'm just going to use that underneath her fringe and just at the top of her arms and legs, and then just blend it out with the E50. And then her hair, I'm going to use E27 and E25. E27 for the darker bits, and then E25 for the lighter bits. But I'm also going to use the E25 to put on or put in some little sort of streaks, because hair's obviously not flat, it's got some movement to it. So I'm just kind of putting in the streaks, and then when I blend, the idea isn't to blend it to so you can't tell that those streaks are there. The idea is just to kind of go over the top and just make them a little bit less, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit less apparent. So they'll still be there underneath the second colour, but they just won't be as dark or as stark. And if I think I've gone too far, I'm just going to come back in with that 27, just put some more lines back in just to kind of define it again. Alright, those wings need, I just don't think the colourless is going to work. So I'm going to do what I was originally going to do and just kind of go in, actually, I'm going to pull in my B000, which is a little bit more blue than I wanted to go, but will still work. I'm just going to blend that in with the BG11, sorry. So it is a tinsy bit more blue. I think it'll be okay. I just want to check. I just want to do just a very small amount of the BG15, sorry, just to add a bit of something. I'm just going to blend that out again. We'll add some shimmer to that afterwards, which will make it look a little bit more finished. So just to finish off the little fairy, I'm just going to give her some little cheeks. So just a little bit of R11. Just to put those little cheeks in. Then for the wand, I'm actually just going to be really simple with this. I'm just going to use the E27 as the handle. I'm not going to do any shading or anything to it. I'm just going to put the handle in. And then I'm going to have it, yeah, we will have yellow. I'm just not sure if I want to use a really pale yellow or if I want to use a really bright yellow. I think I'll stick with pale. So I'm just going to grab Y11 and Y13. I'm just going to put 13 right in the middle, which you're not going to see much of anyway because we are going to put the hole in this for the light to come out. It just means that the light's going to be yellow. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out with the die set. The only other thing I'm also going to do is, this is Merry Mice, so this is where a lot of the Chibitronics came from. In here there is a teeny tiny squidgy little star shaped hole die, and it is absolutely minuscule, but it's going to give me a star shape on my little wand here. So I'm going to run that through as well, so when it comes back you're going to see the hole in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these out and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got my two teeny weeny little images. I had to recut or re-stamp out the little magic wand because I put the star in the wrong spot, and I've just done a really horrible job of die cutting the little wand. So I'm just cutting away some of the white. I could just do it again, but this is easier, even if it is the world's smallest image. There we go. You'll never know. Right, so there's our little fairy and her wand. So that's the basis of the image. So now we're going to start working on the background of the tag before we start working on the sort of Chibitronics part of it. So I've grabbed this piece of Jaycar paper and I'm going to cut it to the same shape as this tag. I have real issues with tags. I can never seem to get the angles of them right. So that's why I trace them to make sure that I do get the angles right, because I can't stand looking at a tag that doesn't have the same shape bits at the top here. I don't know what they're called. So I'm just going to trace around this on the back and then just cut this out with my Jaycar trimmer. And then I just look at it, and if it doesn't look right, I'll fix it. But that one doesn't look too bad. It is not quite right, but again, the more I play with things, the worse they get. So that's the background. So the little fairy's going to sit here with her little light. Now we can't just leave it like that because that's a little bit too simple. So I'm going to cut another tag shape just like this one, and I'm going to cut two clouds. So I'm just going to start off with my bit of white cardboard. And because I'm going to trim off all the extra anyway, I'm just going to put that. Then we're going to grab our puffy cloud dies. One's going to be on the top and one's going to be on the bottom. I'm going to leave this as flat because there's going to be some dimension to this tag with the foam that we're going to have to put underneath for the light anyway. So because of that, I'm deliberately going to leave it as just one flat bit. So I'm just going to grab the glue, just glue this on. I'm using liquid glue just so that I can wiggle it around a little bit. Do the sentiment just a little bit special, so I'm going to put some clear holographic embossing powder on here. So the first thing I'm going to do is powder the heck out of this because I don't want to ruin it now. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of powder. And then we're going to do the sentiment in 2 steps. So the first one is we've obviously got the magical day bit, so that's going to go at the bottom. So I'm just going to put that down and pick it up the way it gets it straight. I'm going to mask off the hover because I don't want that to get in the sentiment, in the ink, sorry, at all. So I'm just going to use Chip Sapphire, so I've got a really dark blue kind of colour underneath the clear holographic. Okay, and then while it's still wet, just going to put this clear hollow sparkle on it. Faster you can work here the better because it will stick better. Usually with embossing powders I'll use my sticky ink. It does work with the distress oxides, you just need to be a little quicker. I'm just going to put all the excess back. So obviously we're coming back with the second lot anyway. But I like to get this one done and then do the top coat. It just gives it a little something magical when it's just got that slight hollow shift to it. So I'll go ahead and do the magical bit. First thing I'm going to do is clean the absolute crap out for this because I don't want there to be any chance of it getting any ink. In fact, I'll stamp it down a couple of times just to make sure. And then we do the same thing we just did, but we'll do it in reverse. So we just mask off the magical day bit. Is now, when I say just about finished, it's just about finished. The only thing we need to do is put the little fairy on there and then poke a hole through where the little star is going to go, and then we can start working on the actual mechanism behind it. So I'm just going to stick, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to stick the little wand to her hand. I'm just going to grab my piercer. I'm getting my reverse grip tweezers because they're really good for when you need to stick something together like this. So I'm just going to put those 2 together and then just hold that with the reverse grips. And then because this is still wet, I can kind of move the angle around if I want to. So all I'm doing here, I'm just pushing a hole. Now I haven't gone the whole way through, but I've gone enough through that I can see through the back where it is, and then I can start working on my little map. Now you can do, actually I am going to push the hole through. I'm just going to do a little hole to start with, and I can always come back and make it bigger if I want. Because I do want to stick the fairy down. So I'm just going to stick her down now. So there's the front of the tag. Seems simple enough. I know it took a while, but it is simple enough. Alright, so then we're going to get the use the tag to make ourselves another bit of cardboard on the back. This is just a plain white piece of cardboard. Alright, so now is when we start working on our circuit. Now the first thing I'm going to say, make sure you leave room for your foam tape all around the outside. Now depending on how wide a foam tape you're going to use, my suggestion is don't use this one because it is, as in don't use it this width because you're going to leave yourself very little room. I'm actually going to use this as a half. So I was just explaining to Ryan, I could use my slightly skinnier tape, but it's not as thick and it won't give you as good a result. So we are going to stick with this one and I'm just going to cut it in halves. So I'm just sort of going to draw myself a little map around the outside because remember this is going to be on the inside, so we're not going to see any of this, of where the tape needs to be. And the other thing I'm going to do is through my little hole here, that's where my light needs to be. So I always find the easiest way to do this when I'm doing a Chibitronics is to actually draw myself a little diagram on the inside, makes it easier to follow. So the square is where my battery is going to go. If you're not sure on size, if you're a little worried about it, you can always grab in one of the batteries and just check that that's the right size. I always put it in the corner because then it can use the foam tape on the bottom and the side to hold it in. So the light's going to go here, which is a little triangle shape, which I'll show you in a sec. And this is the negative and this is the positive. So the negative needs to come straight up. The positive comes up like that. No. Comes up like that. Now obviously when I get moving and putting these down, that might change a little bit, but at least gives me a bit of a guide. So the first thing we're going to use is this copper tape. This comes from the Chibitronics kit that you can either get a Lawn Fawn Chibitronics kit or you can buy them. I bought some of mine from, I think it's called Jaycar. They are a little bit sold out, or a little bit hard to get. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. I'm sure I showed this in my favorites or something. So you can get them from there, but just be aware they may be sold out. If not, just jump online and check it out. I'm sure you can find some without too much of a problem. Another thing I've just realised I need is just a plain bit of white paper, and this is just to make the mechanism that'll turn the light on and off. So I just want to measure roughly how wide that is, and I'm just cutting. It's a very, very simple little pocket thing, doesn't have to be particularly good, but this is sort of that little box that this sits in, and I always like to make sure that it sits in the right spot before I stick it down or do anything else, so that way you know you're not going to mess it up. So this is a little bit too wide, so I'm just going to trim off a little bit. And here's another little hint: if you always have it so it opens to the left, then you only really have to put one bit of foam tape to hold the battery in at the top, because this one will be held in here and this one will be held in here. Alright, so again, I like to write little things on here to help me. So this is a negative, this is the positive. I'm going to stick this in just using some glue tape. Squish that in there. Alright, now I can start making our circuit. So grab that copper tape in. Something else I've just remembered, you can buy just the copper tape off of AliExpress, from eBay. There's lots and lots of places you can find it. Ryan found it for me pretty cheap, and that way you sort of don't have to worry if you kind of use too much. I think I've got 2 or 3 rolls now, just so that if I make a mistake it's okay. The lights are what is really important when we get to that, and is a little bit more complicated to find. So for the positive side, you want to put a little bit on the little flap. So I find it easier to work that you sort of pull off a little bit, stick it down, and just keep pulling it off. So we'll just put that little bit there. And then you flip it over and you pull it taut. You don't pull it tight because you don't want to bend the paper or anything, but you just want to make it so it sits there. And then so we're now onto the cardboard. So now I want to come up. So you fold it, now I've got to remember to do this the right way. So you fold it back on itself to do corners. And that way it stays as one bit of tape. You don't want to at any point break the tape because that breaks the circuit, but you can kind of distort it just a little bit to get around things, and then just trim it off when you're done. It feels like normal washi tape. It's honestly really skinny, so it's not hard to tear or anything. And then just grab yourself a scoring tool or something similar, and you just want to flatten that out. You want to make a good connection with the paper, and you want to make it as flat as you possibly can. And that just helps with the circuit later on. Alright, so there's our positive side. Now we're going to come up with the negative side. Now before I do that, I just want to grab one of the little lights, because I just want to make sure that this is going to be in the right spot. Now there is a special adhesive on the back of these lights. These are the actual Chibitronics lights. And Ryan tells me that there is a special adhesive on the back of this that keeps it being conducted. So you just want to make sure that you don't stick it down and pull it off too often. So I was going to put that back off to the side. We'll grab some more of that copper tape. This one's much easier because we just have to come straight up. So just put that down there. And then just come straight up. And there's your circuit. That's as simple as that part is. And then the light comes over the top. So again, you just double check. There's a positive and a negative on the little light. So you can see which side needs to be on which. So I know that this is my positive. I know I've gone over the top. That's my positive, that's my negative. So you just make sure that the light goes on the right way. And that the little actual light is in the right spot. There we go. Now I just like to give it just a little push, but I don't rub too hard because I don't want to mess anything up. And then when we get our little battery, so just make sure that that's the right way. So positive and negative. And it lights up when you push. Oh my god, that is the coolest thing. I so love these lights. Alright, so there's our circuit. That's the complicated part. Now we're just going to foam tape the heck out of this. And the only thing I've just realised is I forgot to have a little push me. So I'm going to have like a cloud. I'll think of something to have the push me. So I'm just going to go ahead and put foam tape all around the outside so that we can have the little well in the middle, and that's just because we need to have somewhere for the battery to live. There's the sort of outside of it. You can put a little bit more foam tape on here to kind of make it more solid, which we're going to do in a minute. So I just like to make sure that that's going to sit okay. And the tag will sit on the top. And then you just push it and the little light lights up. Now I'm just debating if I want to make that yellow, because I think I do. So I'm just going to colour in the little light. Just with the Copic. Can put acetate, that works too. Kind of dims the light a little bit. Now it doesn't make a huge difference, you can't tell too much, but there is just a teensy bit of yellow now on that light instead. Just need that hole to be a little bit bigger. And I'm also just going to flatten the back so that it's not closing up. Alright, so now we're going to start putting this actual together. So there you go, now you can see that light a bit better. So the only thing you need to do is just add a little bit of foam tape on the top, and that's just to stop the battery falling out. You can go straight over the top of the copper wire, you don't have to worry about that. So I'm just going to put that there. That way the battery really can't move out of its little spot. And I'm just going to put a little bit of foam tape just around the top just to kind of hold everything into place. off all the release tape, which there is a lot, you know, I do it. Put that little one back in. Now, I need to point something out now. If you're going to mail this, my suggestion would be to make a little pull-out tab that will stop this getting squashed in the mail. Because I know I'm not going to, because I know I'm just going to give it to someone, I think it's okay. But all I would do in that case would be put a little bit of the release tape back on here and then have a little bit of paper. Yeah, I could have got scissors, I was lazy. That holds this in the way. Oh, that's actually not even, oh, because it's on there. Because I've come too far down on here. So I'd need to be a little bit more careful with how low I put that, because it's touching there. But you can find put a little release thing on here so that it doesn't touch, and that way you can send it in the mail and not have such a problem with it. But again, I'm giving this to someone, so it's not such a problem. So here comes my really hard part, which is lining this up, because I'm really bad at it. So Ryan just pointed out that I haven't made that completely clear what I meant there. The problem is if you are putting it in the post and it sits and it touches all this, the battery's going to run out, because it's going to, by the time it gets to your recipient, the battery could have been turned on and off about 100 times. So by putting the piece of paper there to stop that happening, you're then going to make sure that the battery's not flat by the time it gets to your recipient. Alright, we have found an issue. That's okay. So the battery is actually just a little bit too high for the foam tape. So I'm just going to pull the top off very, very gently. And we're going to have to make another layer of foam tape, because we want this to be able to turn on and off. We don't want it to stay on all the time. So I've got the second layer on there now. I also just did a little bit of surgery to the little bit of copper tape and just pulled a little bit more off so it doesn't go quite as far down. That way you've actually got to push it the whole way over to get it to hit the battery. So now if I put, I'm just going to show you, so if I put that bit of paper down now and have that sitting in here, doesn't matter how many times I press that, the light's not going to come on. So if I could then pull that out, now it's going to work. So I hope now that makes a little bit more sense. I know I explained it really poorly. The really ironic thing was that it was actually perfect the first time, as in where it was positioned. It's slightly off center this time, but so it is a bit unappealing on the side if you look at it, but it's not too bad. But if you push this little bit here, you can see the little starlights up. So all I need to do is find a way to put something there so that the person who's getting it knows to push there. I think the really simple way. So I think I'll do it as a little cloud. So I'm just grabbing, this is Christmas Dreams. Just grabbing a little bit of that first lot of Express It blending card that we use. I'm just going to grab the die and then the stamp. Now the stamp actually is going to stamp with the little bubbles, but I'll cut it out so it doesn't. So I'm just trying to be really quick with this bit because I know this has been going long enough. And I did say it was going to be simple, and it's kind of not been as simple as I wanted it to be. So I've got the little bubble, and then I'm going to grab my Push Me stamp set. So this is a really good one for all of your interactive stamps. I'm just going to grab the teensy little one here that says do the one that says press me instead of the one that says push me. I'm just going to put that in the little speech bubble, and then we'll cut this out and then do the slight amount of amendments that we need to do to it, which is just really cutting off the bubbles. It won't be complicated. And you could add a little bit of Copic colour to this if you wanted to. I'm gonna leave it just as white, or at least for now I am. I'll have a look at it in a sec when I've got it on the card and see if it looks alright. So the good thing is that these little bubbles are in exactly the right spot for just me to do that. So now it just looks like a little cloud. So I'm just going to put it on there, and it's just going to stick down. Can't do it, well, you could do it with foam tape, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to put it with glue tape, because you don't want it to have too much dimension, because then if you press it, it won't sort of help anything. I think the easier way, or the better way that I could have done that, is to do the little sparkles, but then I'm not sure if the person getting it would have understood what to do with it. Alright, so now we're just going to finish this off with just a little bit of extra sparkle. So this is my Uniquely Creative brush glitter pen. I'm just going to add a bit of glitter just to the wings, and that'll help add a little bit more magic to the fairy. And the only other thing I just need a little bit of string for the tape. So I don't actually have any twine. I thought I had some blue twine, but I don't. So I'm just going to use this ribbon. So it's just a blue, navy blue. I was trying to do purple, but somehow I've ended up blue. I don't quite know how I did that. So we'll just cut that off. You know, I've deliberately left this long so that it's a little bit easier to use on a gift. So I'm just going to use my tweezers to pop this through the hole. There we've got our cute little light up tag. Now I'll do a video with it in the dark so you can kind of see it a little bit easier, but it is very, very, very sweet. Is it perfect? No. I am still getting the hang of doing the Chibitronics, but that's the first one I've done in a long time that has actually, the light has worked. Usually it's something else that goes wrong. So I tried to keep the actual decoration of it very, very simple so that you could just see the technique of getting the circuits right. But I will attempt something a little bit more complicated if you guys are interested in it. I did do something very, very complicated for the first one. The circuit itself actually was pretty simple, but that was the one that I made for my nephew William, which had the little light up eel. I will link that. It's a picture on Instagram, so if you go and check out my Instagram feed, you'll be able to see it. But that one was a little bit more complicated in how big and kind of crazy it was. This one's a little bit more simple with what it looks like, but it kind of, I think it's the bigger battery. It's just not kind of working for me. I need to find a smaller battery. But anyway, I hope you guys did find this one helpful, enjoyable, a bit informative. The Chibitronics can be a little bit scary. They sort of feel like it's really complicated. It's really not. It's just making that circuit. And if you have a rough idea of how to do it, once you've got the hang of that part of it, it's actually really simple. Honestly, the part I find the most complicated is working out how to put a light into a scene. That's the more complicated part for me. The actual circuit itself is really easy. So I'd really love if you guys gave this a try. I'll try and find some places that you can get the Chibitronics lights and link them down below for you. You can find the copper tape really, really easy online, so you won't have to worry too much about that one. It's just really the lights. So don't forget to give this one a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and be to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future videos. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on my social medias as well. I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic, fantastic day, and I will see you again in my next video. Sending lots of huggles. Bye!